What does it take to endure centuries of struggle, preserve a culture under siege, and emerge as a symbol of unyielding resilience? The Sioux tribe's remarkable journey answers this question with stories of bravery, resistance, and cultural richness that have shaped the history of North America. The Sioux tribes, known collectively as the Dakota, Nakota, and Lakota, have a history deeply intertwined with the expansive Great Plains of North America. These tribes originally inhabited the central and northeastern regions of the continent, an area rich with natural resources and biodiversity. Their early society was shaped by their surroundings and the need to adapt to the challenges of a nomadic lifestyle. The Sioux's cultural and societal structure was deeply rooted in kinship and community. They lived in tightly knit groups where every individual had a role. Men were primarily hunters and warriors, providing for and protecting the tribe, while women managed the household, gathered food, and raised children. Elders, revered for their wisdom and experience, acted as advisors and guardians of tradition. This clear division of labor ensured the survival and prosperity of the tribe. Spirituality played a central role in Sioux life. They believed in Wakantanka, the Great Spirit or Creator, who governed all aspects of life and nature. Their spiritual practices, led by shamans and spiritual leaders, included rituals, ceremonies, and dances that connected them to the land and the cosmos. These practices not only provided spiritual guidance, but also reinforced their communal bond. The arrival of horses in the 17th century, introduced by European traders, revolutionized Sioux society. With horses, they could hunt bison more efficiently, travel greater distances, and expand their territory. This marked the beginning of their dominance on the Great Plains, where bison hunting became the cornerstone of their economy and culture. Bison provided food, clothing, shelter, and tools, making it indispensable to their way of life. However, their expansion also led to conflicts with neighboring tribes, such as the Crow and Pawnee, as they competed for access to hunting grounds. Despite these conflicts, the Sioux established themselves as one of the most influential tribes in the region, forming alliances and trade networks that extended across the plain. The Sioux's first encounters with Europeans marked the beginning of a complex relationship that would evolve into both cooperation and conflict. Early contact in the 17th century came primarily through French fur traders who ventured into Sioux territories seeking valuable pelts. These traders introduced goods such as metal tools, firearms, and horses, items that quickly became integral to Sioux life. Horses, in particular, revolutionized their mobility and hunting techniques, allowing them to dominate the Great Plains. Initially, the Sioux viewed these European goods as tools to strengthen their society. Trade relationships were mutually beneficial, as the Sioux offered furs and other goods in exchange for weapons and tools that enhanced their ability to hunt and defend their territories. However, the introduction of European diseases such as smallpox devastated their populations. With no natural immunity, entire communities were decimated, undermining their social and economic structures. As European settlers began to push westward in greater numbers, tensions escalated. The settlers' insatiable demand for land and resources brought them into direct conflict with the Sioux, whose territories were increasingly encroached upon. Treaties, such as the Treaty of Fort Laramie in 1851, were drafted in an attempt to define territorial boundaries and maintain peace. Yet, these agreements were rarely honored by the U.S. government. Roads, railroads, and military forts built through Sioux lands, disregarded the promises made in these treaties, further inflaming tensions. The discovery of gold in the Black Hills in the 1870s marked a turning point. Despite the U.S. government's prior recognition of the Black Hills as Sioux territory under the 1868 Treaty of Fort Laramie, the influx of prospectors and settlers seeking wealth led to widespread violations of the treaty. The Sioux considered the Black Hills sacred, central to their spiritual and cultural identity. This blatant disregard for their sovereignty and sacred sites laid the groundwork for the violent confrontations that would follow. The Sioux Wars, spanning several decades, epitomized the tribe's fierce resistance to U.S. expansion and their determination to defend their lands and way of life. These conflicts were not just about territorial disputes, but also about preserving a culture and identity under siege. The Dakota War of 1862, also known as the Sioux Uprising, was one of the earliest major confrontations. The Dakota people, suffering from starvation due to broken treaty promises and delayed annuity payments, launched attacks on settlements in Minnesota. Led by Chief Little Crow, the uprising resulted in widespread panic among settlers and significant casualties on both sides. Despite early victories, the Dakota were ultimately overwhelmed by U.S. force. The aftermath was brutal, with 38 Dakota men executed in the largest mass hanging in U.S. history, and many more imprisoned or forcibly relocated. Red Cloud's War, 1866-1868, stands out as a rare Native American victory. The conflict arose from the U.S. government's attempt to build forts along the Bozeman Trail, which cut through Sioux hunting grounds. Under the leadership of Red Cloud, the Sioux launched a relentless campaign of resistance, forcing the U.S. Army to abandon its plans and sign the Treaty of Fort Laramie in 1868. This treaty temporarily secured Sioux control over significant portions of their territory, marking a major victory for the tribe. The Great Sioux War of 1876-1877, however, would prove to be a turning point. The discovery of gold in the Black Hills reignited tensions, leading to a series of violent clashes. The Battle of Little Bighorn, also known as Custer's Last Stand, became a symbol of Native American resistance. Led by Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse, a coalition of Sioux, Cheyenne, and Arapaho warriors decisively defeated General George Custer and his troops. Despite this stunning victory, the U.S. government intensified its military campaigns, eventually forcing the Sioux to surrender. The Black Hills were seized, and the tribe was confined to reservations, signaling the end of their large-scale resistance. The forced relocation of the Sioux to reservations marked a profoundly transformative and tragic period in their history. Removed from their ancestral lands, the Sioux faced the loss of their traditional lifestyle, which had been centered on hunting, community governance, and spiritual practices. The bison, a cornerstone of Sioux culture and survival, had been driven to near extinction by settlers and commercial hunting, creating an ecological and cultural vacuum that was difficult to overcome. Life on reservations was defined by deprivation. With little access to sustainable food sources or economic opportunities, poverty, disease, and hunger became rampant. The U.S. government's policies of assimilation further eroded Sioux identity. Native practices such as the Sundance were outlawed, and children were forcibly taken to boarding schools, where they were prohibited from speaking their native language or practicing their tradition. This systematic destruction of cultural identity caused deep psychological and social scars that would impact generations to come. Despite these challenges, the Sioux resisted cultural erasure. Leaders and community members clandestinely preserved their traditions, passing them down in secret. This quiet resistance became a cornerstone of Sioux resilience, ensuring that their culture and spirituality could endure even under oppressive conditions. The late 19th century saw the rise of the ghost dance movement, which promised a spiritual renewal for Native peoples. The movement, led by the pious prophet Wovoka, inspired hope among the Sioux by envisioning the return of the bison and the restoration of native sovereignty. However, U.S. authorities viewed the movement as a threat, leading to the tragic Wounded Knee Massacre in 1890. Over 250 Sioux men, women, and children were killed by U.S. soldiers, marking the end of the Indian Wars and symbolizing the devastating consequences of U.S. expansionist policy. In the 20th and 21st centuries, the Sioux have continued their fight to preserve their cultural identity, protect their lands, and address the socio-economic challenges facing their communities. Life on reservations remains fraught with difficulties, including high unemployment rates, inadequate health care, and underfunded education systems. These systemic issues have kept many Sioux communities in cycles of poverty, yet they have also fueled a renewed commitment to advocacy and self-determination. The American Indian Movement, AIM, founded in the 1960s, brought national and international attention to the plight of Native Americans. For the Sioux, AIM's activism was instrumental in efforts to reclaim sacred lands, particularly the Black Hills. Although the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in 1980 that the Black Hills had been unlawfully taken and awarded financial compensation, the Sioux have consistently refused the settlement, demanding the return of the land itself. This ongoing struggle underscores the Sioux's unwavering connection to their ancestral territory. Cultural revival has been another significant focus for the Sioux in recent decades. Language preservation programs, cultural centers, and traditional ceremonies have become vital tools for reconnecting younger generations with their heritage. These efforts are complemented by initiatives to address contemporary challenges, such as improving healthcare access and promoting economic development through tribally owned enterprises. The legacy of the Sioux is one of resilience, courage, and cultural richness. Figures like Sitting Bull, Crazy Horse, and Red Cloud remain icons of resistance and pride, inspiring not only Sioux communities, but also broader Native American movements. Their history serves as a powerful reminder of the injustices endured by Native peoples and their enduring fight for justice, sovereignty, and cultural preservation. Today, the Sioux story continues to evolve, blending the wisdom of their ancestors with the resilience of modern activism. By understanding their journey, we gain a deeper appreciation for their contributions to American history and their unwavering spirit in the face of adversity.